Today is November 12th, 2024, and I am in a busy downtown Springfield, Illinois street at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum. So let's go on inside and check it out. I have to get a ticket here first. Okay, I got my ticket. Had my camera bag checked by security. So here we go into the museum. So here's the Lincoln family: Robert, Tad, Mary, Abraham, and William. And a little display of the White House. Now they used to have John Wilkes Booth here. His plaque is still here. Now John Wilkes Booth actually used to hang around the White House. But some people found it a little creepy, so they removed his statue. And here we have George McClellan and Ulysses S. Grant.
Let me show you something here in just a minute. Stand right over there and look at his face. I find it fascinating. It's like he has contempt for this guy, you know?
Yeah, I was looking on the internet. They said that he has a little bit of contempt and he looks a little aloof.
Yeah.
And snobbish.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what they tried to portray, and I think they've done a great job on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
But that's the funny thing about history is that's what they say, but were they really like that?
Yeah. McClellan, you know, of course, him and Lincoln.
Yeah,
He liked to build an army, but he didn't like to use the army. You know?
Well, he ran against him in the second election.
Mm-hmm. Right. And probably, my theory is if it hadn't been for Grant, he probably would have been reelected, or would have been elected.
Yeah.
But the fact that Grant was starting to win some battles, and Sherman, after he pushed McClellan out, you know, Lincoln got rid of McClellan in charge of the army and put Grant in charge of the army, and they started winning some battles. Then he got some support at home, see. Before that, people were kind of fed up with the war because they were losing one battle after another, you know, and not really gaining anything.
Yeah, Lincoln was, I know a little bit about history. Apparently Lincoln was not very popular at the beginning of the first couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. And when, you know, they were losing a lot of men, but they weren't gaining any ground to mount anything, you know. They started winning battles, and then Lincoln was reelected. Of course, had Lincoln would have lived, probably he'd have got defeated, he'd probably come back to Springfield, been a lawyer, and nobody paid much attention to him, you know.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's right. Mary certainly would have been a lot happier, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, it's all, hindsight's always easy.
Oh, yes, that's right.
You know, everyone's got Trump just had a great victory, but we'll see where he's at in 4 years.
That's right. That's right. Hi there. You still there? Good for you.
Here we have Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass. And they had, I don't know my details of history that much in this regard, but I know they had met with Lincoln on different occasions. So we will go inside here. And here we have Mary Lincoln. And let me ask if these are all original. Are these all original or reproductions?
They're all reproductions.
Okay.
They're based on the photograph, but you see, the reason I used them is they had a photograph. They also had a description out of the paper at the time as to what the materials were, so they were able to reproduce it.
Okay. Okay, so these...
My wife talked to the lady that done the dresses, and it was real. She said it was just fascinating listening to her tell them about it and how much money they had in these dresses. Very expensive, a lot of handwork, the materials and everything.
Okay, thank you. So all these dresses and gowns, they are reproductions, but they are based on photographs. And I guess there are some written accounts of the material and other details. So Kate Chase was the daughter of Abraham Lincoln's Treasury Secretary. This is a dress from Harriet Lane, President James Buchanan's niece and close political confidant. Mary Ellen McClellan. So the wife of Lincoln's political rival of the time. Adele Douglas, the grandniece of former First Lady Dolly Madison. Here we have a period sewing kit. So before we go out in here, let's go back and start at the beginning. Here we have a young Abraham Lincoln. We got the sun kind of shining a little bright here, but this is a representation of his log cabin home. So let's go inside and see what kind of a display we have.
Good morning. Oh, no, it's
Hi.
afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes.
It's that afternoon already?
Yes, it's afternoon. Just a few minutes. This is
Oh.
a cabin that would have been very typical of southern Indiana when Lincoln's lived there.
Okay, let's go see what's inside. So this is a representation of Abraham Lincoln's pioneer cabin. Yeah, there was a time in Lincoln's life when he went down the Mississippi and was in New Orleans, where he witnessed the slave trade. So here he, restless with his lot, eager to sample life beyond the frontier, the teenage Lincoln built a flatboat, hired by a couple of travelers to ferry them to an Ohio River steamer. Lincoln was mesmerized by the twin silver half-dollars he received in payment. I could scarcely believe my eyes as I picked up the money, he later recalled. I could scarcely credit that I, a poor boy, had earned $1 in less than a day. In the spring of 1828, Lincoln and a friend transported cargo of meat, flour, and corn down the mighty Mississippi River. The destination was New Orleans. What he saw in New Orleans made an indelible impression on Lincoln. There never was a time in his life, he observed afterwards, when slavery did not have the power to make him miserable. The seeds of his misery were planted in New Orleans. So here we have a display representing what Lincoln saw, the selling and splitting of families. Here we have a display regarding slavery. And in Lincoln's early years, he ran a little frontier store. So this is representative of that. And here we have a younger Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd. This is representative of October 1840. Display of his home life, work life. A display for the Lincoln-Douglas senatorial debates. Lincoln lost that election.
So this is what we've been hearing.
Here we have home life of Lincoln during his time in Springfield. Here we have
A four-way presidential race continues as the campaign of 1860 stumbles toward
a
to sort things out.
news
Let's
program
look at the candidates' latest messages
of the 1860
strategies
campaign.
behind their ads. Kept off the ballot in most southern states. The Republican campaign is largely bypassed the South in the belief that
Of course, eventually Lincoln runs for president and wins. Which leads to the Civil War. Thank you. So the Civil War begins at Fort Sumter. In the early days of the war, it was not going well for the Union. Lincoln was mocked and ridiculed. He was not very popular. So you see how these displays are, they're skewed. They're, how would you describe these? They're not normal. It's disturbing. It's disturbing in a way which is kind of gives you the emotion of how the early years of the war was going. And then in 1862, so in 1862, their 11-year-old son passed away after falling ill. There's a portrait of Willie. And Mary Todd Lincoln took it very hard for losing Willie. And it's a little dark in here, but this is a display of the White House kitchen.
Is what I hear. I keep my mouth closed and my ears open, and I hear a lot of things in this house. And I hear that old lady is getting set to issue a proclamation setting the slaves free.
July 22, 1862. Lincoln's cabinet reacts to the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. And some say it goes too far, and some say it doesn't go far enough. So here's a display of Lincoln's cabinet as they work through the Emancipation Proclamation and some of the other issues going on of the day. A lot of people didn't take well to the Emancipation Proclamation. So here we have a display of people arguing for and against the proclamation. It was very controversial back in the day. You know, with hindsight, we know that it was the correct decision. But it was a very radical idea and involved great change. And change is always hard to go through. But as we know, in the end, the proclamation prevailed. but the war raged on. So here's a display of Union uniforms, Confederacy uniforms, and just portraits of soldiers in the war itself. Here we have a series of Lincoln portraits. Year by year. Just showing how greatly he aged. Losing his son. The war itself. So these are casts of Lincoln's hands and face from 1860. And this is from 1865. And here we are at Gettysburg. And here we have a display of some of the stories of the soldiers from Gettysburg. But as we all know, Gettysburg was a turning point of the war. But it came at great cost. And then Lincoln's reelected. And after Lincoln's reelected, John Wilkes Booth slips into Ford's Theater. And we know how that turned out.
Yes. Then I see the smoke coming from the chimney, and then boys working in the fields. Yes. Girls working houses.
So Lincoln is now dead. The train on which his body carried him back to Springfield made a number of stops. It's a little dark in here, but this is representative of Lincoln lying in state. And then Lincoln's final resting place. And this is called the Treasures Gallery. So this is a relic of the Vicksburg siege. The Vicksburg Daily newspaper began running issues on wallpaper because they were running out of paper. Portrait of Mrs. Lincoln. Is that? Okay, long purported to be a portrait of Mary. Where in 1976 it was discovered it is not a portrait of Mary at all, but a completely different woman that had been painted over to appear like Mary, presumably to swindle the family who purchased the painting. The actual artist and subject remain unknown. These are some letters. From Mary Todd Lincoln, and I believe an African American person that she was associated with. This is a letter by Frederick Douglass. So these are various artifacts from the period. Some of which have some historical importance. So that is a walkthrough of the Lincoln Presidential Museum. There are some theater presentations. I'm not sure if I can do video on those or not. But we will find out. Well, that was a walkthrough of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum in Springfield, Illinois. I know it was a little long, and most of you probably clicked out of it early, but I'm sure there are a few people out there who will appreciate being able to see everything. For those interested, I hope you will have the opportunity to visit the museum. I was not allowed to do video of the 2 theater presentations, but they are very good to experience. And as always, you know the routine. Give the like button a good whack, and I hope you will subscribe to see where my camera will take me next.